banks, and therefore they also have different data options. So for instance, I'm verified at multiple crypto exchanges with Phoenix, Qubit, Kraken, and depending on when I registered, they have a different address of me, because I can't be bothered to go through all the, I don't know, 25 financial institutions I'm using in total to tell them that I moved. The solution to this is quite obvious. It's on the blockchain. If it's on the blockchain, we can have one single identity, and we can exactly decide with whom we share this identity. And we can also change our personal information once and share it with a multitude of persons. So this is definitely going to be the future. The biggest one currently is IBM. They already have a perfect finished solution, and I think that this will be widely adopted within the next 3 years. Let's go to the next one, which is transaction processing. One of the biggest issues we have in the blockchain industry, transaction processing. If you look into the Bitcoin network, we have approximately 3 to 4 transactions per second. Not enough. If we look at PayPal, their maximum transaction speed is about 1,600 transactions per second. And if we look at the Visa or MasterCard network, they can process up to 50,000 transactions per second. So we see that there's a huge problem here. And within the Bitcoin network, we've seen some small attempts to improve transaction speeds and so on, but it won't be enough for mass adoption. And there are multiple solutions for this. But a large part of the process is that we need to move away from blockchain. We need to move to blockchain similar technologies. Ethereum was supposed to release Raiden in February this year, no, March this year, but there wasn't any update since then. With Raiden, which is an upgrade, Ethereum would be able to handle up to 50 million transactions per second. But we haven't heard anything since then, and it will be interesting to see what will come in the future. I would also like to mention my most favorite alternative currently, which is IOTA. It's also a cryptocurrency. It was developed for the IoT industry, Internet of Things. And they estimate that in the next 20 years, we will have 50 billion devices that will be somehow connected to the internet. 50 billion devices. And all of these devices will have to communicate among each other. And they also have to have like small microtransactions. So just a very simple example, you're driving with your Tesla somewhere, you're charging it, and the payment will be done over the blockchain. It will be a very small fee, it has to be very fast, and with very low fees. And IOTA enables zero-fee transactions, so you don't have to pay any fees. The only thing is, it's not a blockchain in that sense. They call it a Tango. It has multiple similar features of the blockchain. It's also encrypted. The generation of items. Risk management is also quite interesting. If you hear about cryptocurrencies in general in the mass media, you usually hear about them in a negative context. So that is either gambling, terrorism, or darknet or ransomware. Nevertheless, this public thought about Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies is deeply faulted, simply because the blockchain enables us to follow transactions in a much better way than we have currently with our current standards, which is either SWIFT or in Europe we have SEPA. It's much easier to hide money flows in these systems. This goes so far that the CIA claims that Bitcoin is actually one of the greatest inventions for them as well, simply because it makes much more sense for them to follow the finance streams of terrorist organizations. One company that is doing a great job at this is Chainalysis. They analyze Bitcoin, and they can analyze where these Bitcoins were used, so they can see that these Bitcoins were used in the high-risk industry, these Bitcoins were used to buy drugs in the darknet, and then they can also get information about the user from this data. Yeah, and then the next point, reporting and regulatory management, goes hand in hand with that. So as soon as one user has several flags, let's say he bought drugs over the darknet several times with his cards, it's quite clear, okay, we don't want this user in our user base anymore. We'll just the next point on the chart is bank integration. Bank integration, we are Swift or SEPA. Here we don't need that anymore. We have the blockchain transfer value all over the world. Within 10 minutes, we have a way better system. White labeling is the next point. So this is, for instance, this e-wallet. It can be white labeled for multiple banks. So multiple banks are using the same software. And this is also a very standard thing in the crypto community, simply because large parts of the stuff that is developed in the crypto community is open source. So it's available to use for anyone completely for free. Next one is accounting and billing. The typical standard, the way we're doing accounting and billing, one of the most boring things of running any company is double bookmaking. So you have the records and then you have to enter them into your online system again and again, and it's just a very, very annoying process. It takes a lot of time, takes a lot of money. The ideal solution again is the blockchain, simply because you can you have the verified proof of each transaction that has been made. There's no need for double bookmaking. All the transactions are made on the blockchain. You often digitally anyways. It's very, very easy to exchange them with financial authorities, and the big auditing companies and so on are working on some very convenient solutions. So Deloitte and EY both have great accounting solutions already, partially based on Hyperledger. That will be a standard also within the next 2 or 3 years. The last point is access channels, so APIs and so on. And within Europe, we will have a new regulation from next year onwards called Access to A and TSC2, which will force each bank to have an open API, which leaves a lot of room for many new fintechs to enter this market. And the blockchain market simply doesn't need this. They don't need any open APIs. What is way more interesting is how will blockchains communicate among each other. And this is something that Parity is one of the most famous developing companies on Ethereum is working on currently. They're working on Polkadot, which will connect a multitude of different blockchains. Yeah, so now we've spoken about the traditional side. Are there any questions so far? Well, Arifa, I didn't get a chance to ask earlier, but I didn't know that we were supposed to make 2 different presentations. They go pretty much hand in hand. Should I just continue, or? No, we'll let the others speak. Okay. Okay. Then that's it already. We will discuss later. A few minutes later. Yeah.
Apparently, they've got the connector for the Apple Mac now.
It's all VGA.
Huh?
It's all VGA. We'll stick with it. As long as Outlook, Adobe will work. Okay. Right. Okay, this is the business presentation. No more jokes or funny stuff. This is about liquidity on the blockchain with Sweetbridge. The feeling behind here was, there has to be a better way of doing what we do currently. The supply chain is enormous, and we'll come to some numbers on that in a minute. Sorry. This is a clear day. Run run out of memory. Anything else? Sorry about that.
I would close the windows. The Word document.
Word document.
Word, yeah.
Source of all level Microsoft native applications. So it's in there somewhere. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so we're building a blockchain alliance for liquidity on the supply chain. What are supply chains? When people hear about supply chains, they think, oh, they think Adobe Acrobat Reader is the worst piece of software ever. That's what I'm thinking.
If you can use the remote. I think Cindy opened it in Chrome.
Can I quickly interrupt you? Is everyone of you going to stay after 6 for the evening event? No. Who's going to leave?
Undecided.
Okay. The evening event starts at 6:30 and those people will come. So we once again have to make presentations to them. So I was wondering if you're all staying, then we don't have to do it.
No, do it now.
Sorry about this. Thank you. Just to play nicely. So, talked about what is a supply chain, and most people think of container ships and enormous supply chain issues. But in reality, it's a bit of a corny line, but every piece of clothing you've got, every piece of food you put in your mouth, the furniture you're sitting on, the carpet on the floor, the materials for the walls, every single one of these, unless it was provided by Mother Nature around here, which last time I looked, Mother Nature wasn't providing particularly much to make all these things around here. It's a supply chain that has to bring it to you. And that's literally it. So it's, people talk about financial services and FinCEN and fintech being the largest, but actually the supply chain is even bigger. To illustrate that, here's some pictures of bars of gold. And just to put a number on it, 54 trillion US dollars of GDP is what the global supply chain is. So just let that sink in for a minute. It's actually bigger than the financial business. And you might think that, oh no, surely the banks are the biggest thing there is. Well, actually, big business just uses the banks to do business. Their business is actually bigger. The banks are making money off the crumbs, very nice crumbs they are too, but the crumbs that come off the transactions. Okay, so how can they be liquid? How do we get value out of the supply chain? It's quite a challenge. What we're doing at SweetBridge is we're building a protocol stack. Because we're developers and IT people, you have to have a stack. That's the rules. But anyway, starting with liquidity, this is the thing we're introducing first. We'll then have a settlement bus to make frictionless settlement possible, or a liquidity solution. And then accounting. I think Max related some of the advantages of accounting. As an accountant, I'm not going to say that, blockchain, bada boom, bada bing, no more accounting needed, no more auditing, you don't need financial statements. It's all on the blockchain, don't worry about it. That's not going to happen very quickly. But to the extent that you want to prove that a transaction is taking place and you want to know that it has, the blockchain does provide an excellent accounting layer. And if you restrict yourself just to the facts that are on the blockchain, just facts, then you've effectively cut out the need for auditing or accounting. Not really, but the information's all there to be cleaned and looked up. So you want to see whether suppliers paid on time, they'll be on the blockchain. You want to see whether they paid in full, they'll be on the blockchain. You want to see if they owe money in the ecosystem, that'll be on the blockchain. So if you use the big statement at the beginning saying only as it applies to transactions on this particular blockchain, you're removing the need for a lot of the accounting requirements. For any, I think we have one accountant, but for any accountants, the actual revenue classification of expenses and all the other things that people write about, project valuations and all that stuff, that still needs people to do that work. You know, it doesn't magically go anywhere with magic blockchain convenience. It suddenly becomes not a piece of work. It's still work, it still has to be done, it still affects the financial statements. But there'll be a certainty about the payments and the receipts, which there isn't today. Accountants look at a sample of transactions and they make judgments about the entirety based on the sample that they looked at, and they hope that they're correct. Anyway, this is coming from an ex-auditor of 20 years, so I've a lot of experience of that, looking at samples of things and generalizing about what that might mean. Okay, so who are our contributors in the Aberdeen?
How many to resource sharing?
Oh, sorry? Oh, sorry, what am I thinking? So, carried away with accounting, my head was somewhere else. Revenue classification. Okay, resource sharing. And we talked earlier on about Uber. And you know, if you imagine that Uber was just a protocol and it wasn't an enormous vehicle for sucking huge amounts of money up to the top of the Uber supply chain and making some people really rich, well, the rest of us are all driving cars for minimum wage. Yeah, I'm not a big, I do use Uber, I'm sorry to admit, but that's what it feels like. We're driving poor drivers to minimum wage, meanwhile, some people are making phenomenal amounts of money out of it. If you imagine Uber was set up just to put me, the driver, in touch with you, the customer. And we do it, you know, I drive, you pay me, and Uber takes a small amount out of that. And you might think, well, isn't that what they do today? Well, not really. They're controlling the terms of our engagement. It's not peer-to-peer. It's peer through Big Brother to peer. The Big Brother decides, hey, you know what? I'd really like you to buy that Lexus and become a driver in Dubai. So I'm going to discount all the Dubai taxi fares for the first 6 months. So I go and lease my Lexus, start driving, and you know, you say, this is great, I love this brand new Lexus. Get my taxi for $10, and I'm driving, thinking I'm making lots of money with Uber. And then the 6 months pass, and suddenly all the fares drop off the edge of the world, and there's no discount anymore, no price protection, or whichever pretty words you want to use to dress it up. Discounting, promotion, advanced marketing, buying business is what it really is. But when you stop that, suddenly I've still got my payments on the Lexus, and your price has gone up slightly. You don't notice because you're from out of town. You don't know. Dirhams are really hard to keep track of anyway, and the numbers are all upside down. So you country it. So you'll pay your tax, and it's so Uber has resource sharing, but not in a fair way. What rights do I have as the driver? What power have I got? Well, here's your power. You can either work for Uber or not. That's the power you've got. Am I an employee? No, definitely not. That would interfere with the gig economy model. You can't be an employee. You get employee rights and protection. And your taxi would cost more money. So that's kind of the deal. So it's resource sharing, but I think everyone would agree that it's not optimal. It's done a great number of things. I love hitting the ground in London and paying £37 to get from Heathrow Airport to the centre of London. But I do feel just a tiny bit guilty when I do that. As some poor guy takes his Prius into the centre of London, it takes us an hour and a half, he gets, I don't know, what does he get for that, £57? I don't know, not very much, I would say. 15. So 15. Take away. Between 15 and 25. 15 and 25, okay. Percent, yeah. Yeah, so he maybe gets £25 or something. Oh yes, and insurance, and tires. Anyway, we've picked on Google. That's not fair. I love Uber. I love Uber. We could pay a little bit more, and we could give a little bit more to the drivers. Imagine if Uber had baked in a token which the drivers earn little fractions of that token for every drive they make. So the guy who drove from the first day from Uber would be like a millionaire. And he'd be in the newspaper saying, well, I've driven for 5 years for Uber, and at the beginning tokens weren't worth very much, but now they're worth a fortune, and everybody's come to be an Uber driver, and we're all sharing. The more people drive Ubers, there's a network effect, and it's not the network effect Arifa was talking about, whereby you crush all the competition and no one else lives. But the network effect is that all the drivers get to benefit from the size of the network. And the tokens become worth more because more people are driving with Uber. Anyway, that's the concept. We're talking about resource sharing within the supply chain and allowing access to liquid human capital, but on a fair playing field, on a field where we don't keep all the money ourselves and say, nobody else gets any of this. There's other people doing things like this, like Aragon are doing that for company management. So we've looked at setting up our virtual teams for logistics improvement and having them run on Aragon, which means that if you do a logistics improvement program, a project, a consulting exercise, and you make 10 million, then the blockchain records who gets which percentage and how the money's split up. So that's just an example of blockchain-based allocations of things. Anyway,
and is this like you're developing, or you're developing based on what other people have?
We're developing it, but the Web 3.0 community is all about collaboration, and the blockchain, the Ethereum blockchain, which we're currently working on, is open source. So when we put stuff out there, everyone can see it. So the old way of working is don't tell anyone, make sure there's an NDA signed, and don't let anyone see what it is you're doing behind there, and then you come out with it and you try and kill all the competition. The new world is multiple people providing similar solutions, people collaborating with each other, and the general rule that there's space, there's space for more than one player. And you'll hear many of the guys talking, if this company comes up with a better solution, then we'll use their solution.
So when this is finished, what you offer, other people will offer as well, but you hope to offer it better.
If someone comes up with a really good resource sharing platform, we'll just use that one if it's compatible with ours. We don't care. We're not stating it. You just have to use our protocol for some of this. This is all used to risk management. Finally, and I should have done these the other way around, but I was talking about liquid talent and optimization of liquid talent. Resource sharing is related, but for the supply chain, that's more about sharing a container, sharing a truck. There's some fantastic stats in our white paper, which is released this week, which show you that 75% of the world's logistics and supply chain assets are underutilized for 75% of the time. Just astonishing numbers. Because it's viewed as a zero-sum game, either DHL is winning or UPS is losing, no one shares any asset utilization. So most of the assets are not used for huge numbers involved there. So the liquid talent is really the Uber scenario where one day you're doing a job as driver, the other day you're doing a taxi driver. We're looking at it from a supply chain, and this is the protocol stack. And we're starting with liquidity, but someone else may build resource sharing. Someone may do, if Uber doesn't stamp them out, someone else could do. There's one actually in LA that started, that does a sharing where the driver and the customer deal directly, and and we just provide a platform to make that happen. Anyway, can't go too far into that. I will move on to the next one. So that's our protocol stack. Contributors. Well, as you can see, you probably can't see from this, but we're a bunch of very old people. We've got, between the top 5 people, we have 100 years of supply chain and finance experience. We have a few young developers, and a few old developers, but mostly the creatives and the development team and working with Solidity are all younger people. We have Federal Reserve, ex-Federal Reserve economists. We have double PhD mathematicians. Reasons for that will become clear in a minute. It's an international team. There are a majority of Americans, but there are some other nationalities, myself included, represented there. Chinese, Moroccan, Indian, Scottish, Canadian, Swiss. I think that's about it. I'm not sure, there are some others. So we're contributing to supply chain, technology, economics, government, legal, and finance. That's what we're hiring a team to deal with these issues. Okay, we have a few partners already that you've probably not heard of. There's actually a lot more coming. We've signed another 12, but we haven't put the logos up here. I'm not going to take you through all of these, just a couple. Arizona State University is actually the biggest university in the United States of America, and they have just started a blockchain degree, and they're going to have 2,000 blockchain programmers enrolled in the degree, which is too late for us right now. But in a couple of years, we're going into partnership with them. They're joining the alliance, so we'll get like interns, and if anybody likes the really hot heat like out here, it's exactly the same in Arizona. So if you want any developers out there, we can put you in touch with them. Coin Fund, you might know, it's just a well-known cryptocurrency and alternative currency company. New Law US is actually a consortium of 400 lawyers who want to change the way law works. And instead of charging by the hour, which some of you will know more painfully than others, are there any lawyers in the audience? No, I don't need to put a disclaimer in front of that, but the metrics of law are wrong in that the more time the lawyer spends on your case, advising you, for example, whether or not an initial coin offering is legal in Dubai in general, or legal in the Dubai financial district, and issuing a statement on that, the longer they spend doing that, the more money they make. So the incentive is not there for them to create something reusable. For example, I've got my opinion, you can have it, there's the Dubai opinion. Do you want to see this, whether it's a token or a security or a commodity, whether it's legal? The incentive's not there for the lawyers to allow me to share with this chap here the stuff I've paid the legal fees for. So they're trying to change that and create reusable law, and that's a part of our alliance. So we're going to get logistics and supply chain contracts into that area of law. Okay, so it's more than blockchain. It's catchphrases. I'm just funny, but it is more than blockchain. It's an ecosystem, and we're building. The first one, we're building supply chain. I just talked about law, but then beyond that, we're open to life sciences, financial services, high-tech, tax, retail, manufacturing. We're just trying to build a platform for people to do business on. We're not necessarily going to develop these ourselves, but we'll look to cultivate them and cultivate relationships. So we're starting with the 54 trillion supply chain market, and we'll support new market-focused ecosystems with our partners. Okay, so we'll do even more. We're right finished with that. Petrochemicals, agriculture, automotive, the whole lot. But it's basically the same protocol. Okay, so you saw the protocol stack roadmap. So we'll start with the trillions of dollars that are locked up in this process. So I think we did the hands up who had Bitcoin, who had Ethereum, who traded, and I think what we didn't ask was who would understand the expression Lamborghinis or Mars. See, that's the thing, Dubai Lamborghinis are so common that it doesn't really mean much. Why would you want a Lamborghini or Mars? But anyway, the Ethereum meme is from the Wolf of Wall Street, and the guy talking about getting, not just going to the moon, but going to Mars and having Lamborghinis on Mars. Anyway, so the point is, it's not something you'd associate with the normal supply chain for goods. So you won't find any Lamborghini stuff anywhere here. So basically, you're familiar with this. There's order to payment cycle. And any of you who've worked for or with some of the world's largest companies will know that they are taking this and grab a hold of this here and stretch it out. The payment terms as long as they can. How would you like 75-day payment terms? No, wait, 90. Does that sound good or what? And you say, well, no, actually, it sounds really terrible. And you say, well, how does no business that solves it? Because we are DuPont, Caterpillar, GlaxoSmithKline, Walmart. If you want to do business with us, Apple, then these are your supply chain terms, your credit terms. So you're familiar with the order, the goods, the payment, some kind of transformation manufacturing process, then the goods go. This can be locked up for 60, 70, 90 days, and there's no access to it. So the guy who's making the wood and delivering it to the pulp factory, let's say, he has to wait 60 or 70 days to get anything back. So what if there was a way he could get something out of the assets that he's got in that credit cycle? Would that be good? Would that be useful? So we'll go through an example on that. So we picked, this is a bit incongruous because, 1 minute here we're dealing with paper being made and delivered to a card shop or something, and the next thing we're into cryptocurrency. But there's a reason for that. The reason is there's lots of different laws, regulations, and rules surrounding tokenization of assets and putting assets on the blockchain and having title to them. So there's laws for real estate, there's laws for funds and fiat, there's all sorts of regulation. However, there's nothing today for cryptocurrency because it's so new that there isn't really any legislation for it. So it might be the first thing to try. You also get a very volatile market and a lot of interesting dynamics to look at. So it's a great place to experiment with the stability. So here our concept involves two coins. So Bridgecoin, if you're an altcoin specialist with your collection of interesting tokens, is probably the most boring coin you'll ever meet. It doesn't do anything. It's not going up, it's not going down. It's tethered to a fiat currency. Okay? That's why we hire Federal Reserve economists, double PhD mathematicians, and other very bright people to help us build a mechanism to keep it stable. If you remember from the last presentation, the two pizzas that were bought in May 2010, looking back, if you kept the money and not bought the pizzas, you'd now have $14 million. So the punchline of that was, that's a terrible currency to do business in. And going back to our guy here who's waiting, if you put that into this thing and say, well, actually, the money you're getting paid now for the wood is actually worth $40 million now instead of your $20. Someone is going to be upset at that deal. You can't do business with goalposts moving where the money changes. So there is a need for a stable coin. So Bridgecoin has been able to bridge the old economy to the new one to reduce exchange risk, to provide stable value, and it's fiat pegged. So it'll be Bridgecoin dollar, Bridgecoin euro, Bridgecoin pound sterling, Bridgecoin dirham, whichever currencies make sense. And that will be for business-to-business payments, and we'll try to hold that as closely as possible to the actual currency. Over to sweet coin. You might just be able to see a very tiny Lamborghini in here somewhere, but it's going to float freely. It will be a speculator's coin. It will be a limited supply, and it will probably, it's not investment advice, but it probably rise on launch due to supply and demand. It allows you to borrow more, it allows you to reduce your interest. It's effectively an insurance coin, which if you use it along with this, you can get more collateral. You also get free settlement, and a free crypto bridge to get in and out of cryptocurrency. So it will be a very desirable coin, but its price can go down, its price can go up. This one isn't going to do anything. It's just going to, well, unless anything happens with North Korea, and then it will track the US dollar. But I don't know, your guess is as good as mine what happens with North Korea.
Is the bridge coin, how is the similarity to Tether?
Tethers exist outside. It's a kind of tether mechanism, but they're in circulation. I think we're going to be doing something a lot more stable with it. You can read it in the white paper, but I think Tether has some kind of magic. And Maker DAO was the first guys to do this. And actually on our team is Kenny Rowe from Maker, who's accepted that it didn't work for them to try and make it stable, but this time we'll come back with some more, economists. It's different from Tether. I'm not completely sure how Tether works, but the way I saw it, they were creating and destroying tokens or something as a Tether mechanism. But ours is different from that. We're doing the white paper, but its only objective is to be a stable currency to do business in. And rather than force everyone onto the US dollar, we'll do it for country specific, currency specific. So, to give you an example, in cryptography, it's always Alice and Bob. So we felt we should stick along with that and look at Alice and Bob investing in their SweetBridge wallet. So Alice has invested $10,000 and bought 50 ETH. Now, hopefully, while we all had lunch, ETH is still a lot higher than $200, right? Hopefully somebody will say yes. But this is a while ago, this presentation was done. So basically, she buys $10,000 worth and gets 50 Ethereum. What happens next? She then deposits the 50 Ethereum into a SweetBridge fund account. Now this is important. This goes into a vault, a fund account, where it's locked. So it's not the same as Basel III fractional reserve lending. It's not Jimmy Stewart in It's a Wonderful Life. You've seen that great black and white movie about running the bank and how it's everybody's money. This money isn't going anywhere. It's going onto the blockchain and it's going to stay there. That's it. So it's locked. So you can't spend it because it's locked there. We don't want to spend it. We're not going to go to Las Vegas with your money and try and make lots of money with it. We're just going to keep it on the blockchain exactly where it is. So it gets locked in. However, because you've locked it in, you can then borrow up to 50% of it. Now, 50% of it is a number from Fresh Air. It could start at 10, it could start at 90, depending on the asset you're using. We have a mechanism to determine the appropriate percentage of funding. But this is allowing you to be your own bank and borrow from yourself. Think about it. You're putting Ethereum on the blockchain, you're then borrowing against it. What do you get? Well, you get that boring coin, the bridge coin, which is going to do nothing, but you can then sell it and buy other things with it, whatever you want. So we'll come to questions and things later, I'm sure there'll be a lot of them, but there are sell lines and liquidation mechanisms that prevent that from running out. And as I said, the 50% is just a plug. It could be 10%, it could be 70%. It's likely it will start off quite low, but you're basically borrowing against your own money that you're putting down here. So it's from you. And there's no fractional reserve lending. Yes?
You borrow 50% of Ether.
No, she will borrow 50% of the ether value. So she's got, yeah, yes, yes. So Bridgecoin is 1-to-1 with the dollar. So you're absolutely right. That's $5,000 she's borrowing against the money she's put down. Okay. Okay. So
sorry.
Yes.
Just for clarification purposes, the ether will not be converted into anything else. She still has the ether prices. Correct?
Correct.
Okay. So the 50% borrowing rate is also variable.
Yes.
Let's assume ether falls by 50%. She has to get some money back.
We liquidate it automatically.
There's
a sell line under which we
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
Or she can pay
Yes. Yes, you can pay back. So the risk here is you're banking for yourself. It's your money locked in your wallet. We're not going to take it and spend it, and we're not going to Las Vegas to try and make even more money for you. But compared to putting it in a bank account today and earning very little interest on it, plus the fact knowing that the bank's already off gambling with it, it's a different scenario. So anyway, so she gets her 5,000 Bridgecoin. What does she do with it? Well, she can exchange it for groceries, some of those pizzas we talked about, or equipment. Perhaps Alice is a big Bitcoin miner and she wants to get access to funds to buy new mining equipment without having to liquidate all the Ethereum she's mining. Well, this would let her do that. She just has to lock it up, and she can get Bridgecoin out, change it into dollars, and go and buy, a Ferrari, or mining equipment, a dress, or groceries, whatever tickles her fancy. Or, in this case, as Alice is very interested in cryptocurrency, alternative coins, she's gone back to good old Bitcoin. So she uses her 5,000, and let's not worry about the exchange rate, but let's say that buys her 1.2 Bitcoin. So now what's happening? Now she's still got her 50 Ethereum on the blockchain locked, and she's now got 1.2 Bitcoin. So this is a way to it's similar to a margin call if you're a trader, but you're getting to amplify the amount you can invest. You don't have to sell your Ethereum to buy Bitcoin, you can hold both. Okay, so what happens now? The price obviously can go down as well as up, but when the Ethereum price increases to 300, she wants to sell it for profit. She can either repay Bridgecoin to the vault or instruct the vault to sell a small portion to repay the liability. So if she gets it right here, she can then close out the debt that she had for the Bridgecoin and still keep the Ethereum and the Bitcoin. So that the bottom line, and we're almost finished here, Alice was able to borrow from her Ether without having to sell it. So she made $5,000 on her 10,000, which is not a bad interest rate compared to your high interest saving rate, without having to liquidate anything. Yes?
How much fees does Alice will need to pay for the service?
Good question. If she uses Sweetcoin, she can have interest-free and settlement charge fee-free and reduce the fees to nothing. Put the right amount of Sweetcoin in the Bridgecoin. But we're typically aiming to go between 10 basis points and 3 basis points, which is spectacular for a small business, and it's kind of long-term objective for big business. You want to get down to 10. Big banking will be done at single-digit basis points. Okay, so she managed to make a profit without having to do anything. Now imagine you're in a business and you've got 1.5 million locked up in assets. Think of the possibilities of unlocking that in the supply chain. Whether it's invoices, whether it's inventory, whether it's assets, whatever you have. If we can put those in a vault and borrow against them, we can then unlock a huge amount of that liquidity.
So that's like factoring basically.
But you're doing it against yourself. You're not paying 20%, which is a typical.
I get it. Yeah. You're disrupting the basic passive banking.
Yes. So here's the wallet. It's in beta. Let's say alpha or beta at the moment. And this is just showing you. We do have a demo session. I'm not the technical guy, so I'm not going to take you through the demo where you put money in your wallet and borrow against it and move it around. But basically, it's lend yourself money interest-free without another party. So it's using blockchain as a way of getting trust. So how do we trust that you haven't spent the money? Well, we trust it because it's still there locked in the blockchain and you can see it's there. Anyway, that's it for me. Thank you very much. I'll finish it there and let you guys.
Can you page please? And see, page you want to start that with somebody? Okay, I can do it. Okay.
All right, hey guys, this is going to be a quick little story about what I do. Bottom line is New Alchemy is headquartered in Seattle, and what we do is anything you can think about as far as technology goes around a token launch. So many people come to us and they have an idea. Hopefully they have some kind of white paper we can review, but what we can do is pretty much anything you can think about that goes around a token launch, whether it's introductions to investors, PR and marketing, of course the technology. Right now we're fully booked until February because the business has taken off, which is exciting. But we are still offering the software part of it, which I think many people appreciate, because if you have a few people on your team that can do the PR marketing, go on Twitter, start a Slack channel, things like that, then we can work really great together and we can do a launch in the next month or two. Let's see. One thing I can say is that many people ask when, how quickly can we do a token launch? And we suggest that if you have a great looking white paper, we can do a launch within 2 months. And that's only because you need to get the word out, and you need to get the messaging out. And as time goes on, it's going to become increasingly competitive. And things that worked a year ago are not working today. You also have to think about your vertical. So for instance, I've heard of certain things that are proposed to me, and we think it's great, but we also know 5 other people that are doing the same thing. So there's a combination of moving quickly, but also having the right team in place to have the effect that you want to raise millions of dollars. So for New Alchemy, we're not the type of company that we want you to have a launch that goes on for a month's time. We're the type of company that we believe in your project, we want to raise millions of dollars because we believe in what you're doing, and you're going to sell out in like 10 minutes or something. Yeah, maybe more than that. So if you'd like to talk with me about this, I'd be more than happy to tell you, at least my perspective of what's going on in the space. As I mentioned before, I've been in Bitcoin for a while, so I know a lot of the people that are quite influential, and I think that's another benefit of partnering with our firm is that we can bring in investors. We can't guarantee it. You need to do a little legwork. I mean, it's not the lotto, even though everybody wants it to be. And I'm also, like I said, I'm one of those types of people that if I believe in your project, I want to push it out, and I want to help you with PR and marketing. So, as I said, if you have any questions about token launches, we actually do them, and we did Token Card and we did Fun Fair. So you can go online and take a look at those projects. And that's pretty much it. So thank you. Thank you for coming out today.
How much budget was startup if I want to go for a normal kind of ICO launch?
How much money do you need to?
Would it be $1 million, $500,000? And there is no end to the sky. The sky is the limit anyway. However, what is the bare minimum that we should look at?
The minimum to invest in like the technology. Well, the good news is that there are a lot of firms that are not as pricey as ours, perhaps, but people will charge a percentage of the raise, and they'll also charge a percentage of tokens. So if you are looking to do an ICO, the great news is that you don't have to have a lot of upfront money. For New Alchemy, it depends on the complexity of the token. It depends on the team that's a part of it, the kind of traction you'll get in the industry, things like that. But feel free to talk to me later and I can give you some more insight. I just don't want to announce it to the world. Okay. Any other questions about token launches? Anybody going to do a token launch? I know that some people.
Yeah, we did already token launch.
Okay, well, I mean, not everybody's here to do a token launch. They're here to learn about blockchain. As speakers. Well, I know the speakers. I'm talking about people out here. I'm just curious because I know that at the lunch, I was asking people about, what they're looking to gain from today's, conference, and some people want to just learn more about blockchain in general. So, like I said, if you have any questions about token launches, feel free to reach out to me later. Thank you again.
We will continue where we left off. Yeah, so let's continue with traditional market when it comes to asset management. And we're taking the example of investing into real estate funds. So first of all, the investment is more or less illiquid. If you get into a real estate fund, it's very difficult for you to get out. It takes a couple of months. Usually, also the volatility is low, so there's no interest for you to get out after a couple of days. Yeah. On top of that, there could be high risk involved, depending on the project, and they're very high entry barriers. So, in order to invest into a German real estate fund, you have huge and very long legal procedures, and they're expensive and they just take time. They're very annoying. Also, getting in and out is expensive in that sense that even if you are, I'm taking the German market because I am German and I know the best. Even if you are a German citizen, you have high fees to pay in order to get in and out. So if I want to buy an exchange traded fund, if I want to invest, I'm a student, I don't earn much, I only want to invest 100 euros. I pay 5 euros at my bank to get in, a minimum of 5 euros to get out. And that's already very unlikely that I will earn that amount.
This is my document.
So it's very unlikely for me to invest. So it's a market that is only interesting for large scale investors and not for small scale investors. Also, on the other side, there's a large competitive disadvantage for people that are running funds. If you want to run your own real estate fund, it's very unlikely that the bank will sell your product for you. So you will have to sell it yourself. Only the bank is sold over the bank. So that makes it have a lot more difficult. And then I already spoke about this before, the lack of access to global investment. So if you're running a fund in Germany, you won't get any investment from China or Russia. It's very, very difficult. What Gridlock is doing is we're enabling the global distribution of funds, reducing the costs, increasing profitability, lowering fund managers' workload, and overall leveling the playing field. And the way we're going to do this, we have a great team. So Martin is here with me today. He's one of our co-founders. Martin has a very long background in Bitcoin. He founded Bitbala, which is one of Germany's biggest Bitcoin payment processors. He also founded Bitcoin Berlin, which used to be Germany's biggest, I don't know, still used to be definitely Germany's biggest blockchain-related incubator. Also founded a co-working space called Transistor, which is Germany's biggest fintech co-working space. So it's fintech only. You can pay in Bitcoin or any cryptocurrency you like. Yeah. Jacob has a little bit different background. He has a background in real estate. He used to run several housing projects, and then at one point he was quite successful doing this. So at one point he wanted to set up his own real estate fund. And while doing this, he encountered all of these problems, and Martin and Jacob are long friends, so they noticed, okay, maybe we can combine these two worlds, this very traditional business of real estate, and combine it with the blockchain to build something great, to make it more convenient to invest. Marius is our technical lead, together with Philip. Marius has a background working for Qubits and Coinbase. Philip is formerly fintech. Yeah. So essentially what we do, the entire magic is happening in one smart contract. Our platform is also running on Ethereum. We've discussed it already quite a bit today. We also know what a smart contract is, more or less. And the way it works is that the user pays Ether or Bitcoin to the fund manager. The fund manager sends the securities, and these securities could be real estate funds, ETFs, or in the long run, even stocks or similar, to the digital trust. And the digital trust sends so-called proof of access tokens to the user. So these proof of access tokens are basically similar to the paper you would have had a couple of years ago when investing into a stock. The whole thing happens within 10 minutes and more or less in real time. So it all, like, it's a chain, but it happens very fast. So yeah, the advantages of the proof of access token are, first of all, we are reducing costs because we are cutting out the middleman. We're not going through a brokerage firm which takes money. We don't need to go to the clearing houses. It's also a lot faster. So depending on the commodity you want to buy, the type of clearing and settlement may take up to 2 days. And it's tradable 24/7. So you're not depending on stock exchanges where you can trade from 9 o'clock until 6 p.m. You can trade 24/7 also on the weekdays. On top of these real estate funds and exchange traded funds, which will be our first products, we also added crypto traded funds or coin traded funds, simply because they are very similar to ETFs. They're simply a basket of cryptocurrencies, and you can invest with one click into a multitude of different cryptocurrencies, which simply makes it easier for you to diversify. You don't need to download a wallet for each individual cryptocurrency. It also makes it a lot more convenient for institutional investors because it's like a bit more secure in that sense. And we take care of the cold storage, so you don't need to worry about security. Martin will talk a bit about regulation now.
Yeah. So hello, my name is Martin. So I'm the co-founder of BrickBlock, and I will continue with the presentation. When we talk about regulation, all what we saw before, what Max told you, we could do already technically, but legally it's a bit harder. So we are sorry. So we are based in Gibraltar, and there we have our token sale. So I will talk a bit about the token sale, and then later about the specific products what we will offer on the platform. So first we wanted to also incorporate in Switzerland, like the most ICOs. But Switzerland was very, very crowded. We saw it would take a lot of time and will cost a lot of money. So we decided to go to Gibraltar. It was much easier, much faster, and much cheaper. And our token function also is kind of proved from the FSC, from the Financial Authority of Gibraltar. We did like an access function of the tokens. What I will show you now the token function. So this is the token function of the ICO. You have our investors or contributors need to invest Ether, Litecoin, or Bitcoin. Then they receive BrickBlock tokens. These BrickBlock tokens can be frozen and in a smart contract, and then they produce constantly access tokens. These access tokens can be sold on secondary markets, or they can be used to pay the BrickBlock platform fees. So what I want to say with it is that our token function is like a pre-sale of the platform fees. And there will be some fees on the platform because we will focus first on the big real estate projects in Germany. So it will be possible to invest cryptocurrencies into certain real estate projects in Germany and get payouts, monthly dividends payouts in crypto back. That means the monthly dividends will be put into a smart contract and automatically distributed to the investors. To invest in a certain real estate project, you don't need the EBT tokens. We give you the possibility to use Ether as a most or second most common cryptocurrency. But the fees for the service will be paid in access tokens. And as you can imagine, when we will sell, for example, real estate's 20 projects with a volume of 100 million euros, then there will be around 2 to 3 million euros in fees. What I want to say with this is that I believe that our project will create a consistent demand for the access token. And these access tokens, which are sold on the ICO, will have like a stable value, at a real use value in the near future, because this project we will launch in around 2 months. So in 2 months, we will sell the first standardized apartment building through the Ethereum blockchain in a legal system in the European Union through smart contracts. Yeah.
In a fund structure, or is it actually sold, the actual real estate title is sold to the digital trust itself? So is it a
It's
form?
more a fund structure. I don't want to go too much into detail because it's our USP.
Okay.
But we are regulated in the European Union, not in Gibraltar. In Gibraltar, we have the ICO and the platform launched, but the legal structure, what will care about this real estate projects, will be in the European Union, and the real estates will be in Germany. So we want to open the German real estate market for international investors without touching a bank and still owning shares of the real estate. That means that even if we go bankrupt or anything happens, you will still have your shares of the real estate. We want to give a diversification for crypto holders or also other ICO projects to diversify their crypto funds in a stable way. And so that means that the profitability of each real estate is not that, and will not be that important. If it's like 3% per year, 6%.
It's about store growth.
Yeah, it's more store growth.
Where is the money going?
Sorry?
So the money will go to invest the building of the construction of the building?
We will focus on existing apartment buildings, very standardized, with very transparent market rates. That means we want to give the international investors fair deals in Germany. That's why we focus on very standardized buildings. Let's say, for example, in Berlin, a building with 13 flats, you can easily check the price, the market price of this building. It's around 33 times the yearly rental price or income, the yearly rental price times 33 in Berlin. In Leipzig, it's maybe 18 or something. It's very transparent.
We're also focusing a lot on social housing, because there we have a guaranteed regular income, because most of the rent is paid by the government itself. So it's really one of the most secure ways to invest into real estate. It's not we're not investing in real estate on a speculative sense. It's more on securing and diversifying your crypto assets. Simply because the speculative investments can go both ways. And we really want to have a very, very safe haven for people that have their entire assets in crypto to diversify their portfolio. Because, for instance, many people many friends of ours have their entire assets in crypto, but they literally have no money on their bank. They have everything in crypto. And whenever they're in a bad mood, they just have to go on coin market cap and see, okay, prices are going down, and that's the only reason. So the main idea is to have a safe haven, but still have a small percentage of regular dividend payouts. So it's not like investing, let's say, into gold, or simply exchanging it into fiat, where you don't have any benefit.
Almost when any investment you do, for example, you buy property, you can sell it later.
Yeah.
To pay back all your money back. How does it work in this?
Yeah, this will work also on secondary markets. We will also create a secondary market around this, where you will be able to sell your shares or tokens, because each investor will also get tokens. And the dividends are paid to this Ethereum token. So after a very slim and easy KYC procedure, you will also be able to trade these tokens. So every investor will need to do a very easy KYC procedure, just passport copy and utility bill. That will be enough for us. We will care around the fiat payments around this, so you don't need to care. And it will also be able to get monthly dividends paid in fiat on your prepaid debit Visa card. So maybe let's roadmap.
One more question.
Yes,
on the redemption of the tokens which compromise a share in the building. So not your access tokens, but the actual
proof of access token.
Yeah, exactly. So they're basically fungible, so you can trade them, but they're not going to be burned. It's not like I can redempt them. Like, for example, I give it back to you, you guys give the token back to the real estate fund, and the real estate fund redeems the actual fund shares, or
maybe this will also.
This could be an option, but not for the pilot project.
Yeah, okay, so the pilot project is just flat out, here's the asset, sell it in tokens, secondary market traded, that's it.
Exactly. Okay. So so there will be a monthly, so the income of the building minus the fees, minus the taxes, and the rest of it will be put in the smart contract, or exchanged in Ether, put in the smart contract, and then distributed to the investors.
Okay.
Yeah.
Since every token investor has, well, I suppose most of the time, different tax residency. So you might have Portuguese, you might have Russian, you might have whatever, Maltese, Italian, concerning the double tax treaty network of Germany specifically. I understand that obviously rental income in Germany is fully taxable in Germany. However, if you use a corporate shell and distribute earnings out of this corporate shell to the token holders, the withholding tax is obviously different.
Yeah, you're correct. But
so how do you get circumvent that? Do you simply apply the maximum withholding tax rate there?
No, we are mainly focused on, we have a legal structure where we want to take pay as low taxes as possible and put the rest in a legal system which pays out like internationally. And our main target market is international market, not Europe. So and we are sure that the investors should care about their taxes in their home country. Yeah.
If I sell my part of the property ownership to somebody else, will I have to come back to you, or I have to go out and look for a buyer myself, or it happens in the secondary market?
Well, the thing is, like, right now we have this one pilot project, right? But if we go, like, let's say 1 or 2 years ahead, we might have hundreds of thousands projects, 200,000 projects, or even more. None of the biggest exchanges like Kraken or Bitfinex will like realistically be interested in listing all of these different tokens. Also because the volume is relatively low. Like, let's say one apartment contract is worth 5 to 7 million. No exchange is going to make a technical effort, which effectively means we have to build our own exchange. And on this exchange, it will be directly P2P. There won't be any fees besides maybe for, depending on the product, for KYC. And so you simply go onto the platform, you verify yourself, and then you can easily share in the same way as you can now with any other crypto exchange.
Would this fund manager for the building?
Yes, there will be.
And it's only like for now, it's only for ERC20 tokens. So like adding the new tokens is like really a matter of minutes. So yeah, maybe let's talk a little bit about our roadmap. We developed our first proof of concept earlier this year. We've set up the legal structure. We went public parallel to consensus in New York in, I think it was March or April, I can't remember exactly. We published a white paper, and yeah, right now we released our core smart contract structure. So the most important part of our software is already released. It's also open source. So if you are into Solidity, feel free to check it out. We have a great community. We have over, I think in total, probably around 5,000 people that are already interested in our project, that are contributing with ideas, that are trying to improve it, that are testing us, that are giving us a hard time with tough questions, but it's a lot of fun. We have a really cool community. 1 month ago, we launched our pre-sale and raised 1.2 million from over 810 investors. And yeah, now we're entering beta testing mode, testing the product we currently have. Yeah, so in conclusion, what we do is financial inclusion. We help international participants to take part in European markets, or initially only in the German market. We make it a lot cheaper, more cost efficient. We enable 24/7 trading. The clearing and settlement takes less time, so it's also a lot faster, and it's a completely banking independent asset system. Thank you very much. Any questions?
No, I have one more question.
Yes.
Sorry, guys. Since this is really a real estate backed token, and since we are, well, since the regulatory landscape hasn't caught up with all the developments, if I were to assume that this would be simply a classic certificate, like an issued certificate in Germany with an ICO and everything, with exactly the same term structure, according to my knowledge, actually the actual gains, the actual speculative gains, so the price gains from this particular instrument, would be actually taxable in Germany regardless where you reside. And the core question here is liability for you guys in case, well, let's assume the classic Russian investor, he doesn't care about filing exit on Germany, about this about 50 USDP income. That is not even aware of it. That this is particular in Germany. How do you guys represent your personal about the company's liability towards potential tax payments for the on behalf of the token?
We choose a European jurisdiction with a lot of double tax agreements, which is not Germany.
I get that, but okay, fair enough. So let's talk about this again. Yeah. You could restrict your KYC AML to the users.
Yeah, but that's exactly what we don't want to do, right? We want to open up the market to just much more to a bigger world. But one of our biggest advantages is, well, I'm in our core team, but our two advisors who are also becoming board members right now are Dr. Wolfgang Richter, and he is one of the probably most well-known lawyers in Germany for real estate funds. And he's advising us, he's enabling us to take care of this entire procedure. So without him, we wouldn't have a chance.
He's specialized in opening the German market for third country investors.
I think you mentioned earlier when you were downstairs that you are giving the dividends net of taxes. So you've already paid
Exactly.
in Germany from the corporate point.
Exactly.
What he said is that there are different tax rates for different nationalities.
Right, but my last question was actually not about the dividends, or the taxation of the dividends. My last question was concerning the actual appreciation in token value, or the appreciation in real estate value, and the capital gains from it. Because that, in turn, is also taxable according to German law, regardless where you live.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And then the second thing, we have started with a two-layer system. We have the token, the asset-backed token, and we have under it our European legal structure. So if that token will have in the first months more symbolic value, but the underlying structure gives you the 100% legal safety. Yeah, we want to show that this is easily doable, and
obviously there will be a decoupling from the underlying asset value versus token. Otherwise, you guys wouldn't be able to compete anyway. So I understand that. I'm more concerned about possible liability when you park token shares for unpaid taxes on behalf of the homeowner.
I get the implication. We actually represent a new law. One of the things we're looking into is American real estate, the same analysis, and the tax authorities are very excited about the automatic deduction of this tax from the numbers which should be baked into your model. Yes, this tax is payable whether you are, Mickey Mouse or an EU citizen or from Tanzania or wherever, and the German government gets it. And here are all the numbers to prove it. So I think one of the options is to build it into the calculations. It says, well,
okay, so there's a token issue and you're withholding part of the capital gains.
exactly. And the government we talked to are very excited about that. Someone else collecting the tax. What's not to write, and it's auditable, and it's on the blockchain. So
yeah, but the question here is, since the tokens will be traded on third-party exchanges, how do they control the withholding part of it?
Well, only as it relates to the property. The secondary trading will always be secondary trading. You can't be liable for that because you can use it as broken. You can be liable for the property price depending on the KYC and our customers. But once they go off piece and sell on the market. But that's why we do take it in to this market. So if it's known, if it sense that it's known in general.
yeah, that's very good. That's very good.
But this was, this goes, something that you guys would have with
Or else you provide a reserve. We've got a war chest to pay for screw-ups and things that people don't do, and to defend you against litigation. For example, the German tax authorities coming after you. Someone might have decided it's your tokens, but I think automating the deduction of tax is something all the authorities are talking about.
Yeah, I think so too. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, let's take a tea coffee break and then we're done.
Yeah.